Alright, so I got a request from someone. They were wanting to know about the settings that I use. Obviously, if you look at the top left, you'll see two games that I have that I've played most recently. Monster Hunter Portable Third and Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. Now, gonna go ahead and start. No, I'm not a ninja. You'll probably see some clothes are kind of out of place. See face, hands. Light over there isn't showing a whole lot, so I apologize for that in advance. Now, as for the settings, actually, let me go back, because I'm not sure if you can see my title bar, which is like way up here. Now, the version I'm using is version 0991-1554. I'm not sure if the GE71CD35 is important. That part's neither here nor there. We're here for the settings. So, starting off, for graphics, we have the back end. For the rendering mode, we have the back end I have set to OpenGL. There's a couple other options. I have one other option in this one. I haven't set it to Direct 3D 9. OpenGL seems to work just fine. I mean, I'm running an AMD system, AMD processor, and AMD graphics card. ATI graphics card. Oh no. But I then also, as a courtesy to the backend mode, I've set read frame buffers to memory for GPU. And then I have the simulate block transfer set to the checkmark as enabled. That's just a thing that I have set. I don't know specifically if that actually works or whatnot, even if it, you remove checkmark. But anyways, in the next section, I have the following set as, what's in there. I have frame skipping set to off. Don't really need it. And, I mean, if you're going to frame skip, probably should only do that with the turbo button in first player, or in single player. Just simply because and I have done this with a couple friends. You do it in multiplayer, not only are you sped up, and you're kind of glitching around on their screen all over the place. Oh, look, monster. They're now twice as fast as what they were. And second part of that, auto frame skip turned off. No need. Got the prevent FPS from exceeding 60. That's just kind of a default setting. I think that's there by default, as is the alternative speed, left at 0. No real reason to change those. As far as features, I've got the post-processing shader set to anti-aliasing. There are quite a few options in here. Anti-aliasing is just the first one, and you can simulate TV scan lines. Woo. I mean, if you want that, you can have natural colors, vignette, grayscale, bloom, blah 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 blah. If you really want to try for the coup de grace of the post processing shaders, just set it to 4xHQ GLSL. If your system can handle it, typically this is left off. I just have this set. Personal preference. Entirely personal preference. I'm getting solid speed, whole 9 yards. And even when you start, like for Portable Third, I noticed for certain settings, which we'll probably touch on here a little bit later. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I've probably got that disabled. But there are settings that if they're left alone, for Portable Third, when you go to start your character and it brings up the town, if you have the frame rate and the speed of the emulator both showing in the top right, you will typically notice where it starts really, really slow and then builds up. And then if you're in multiplayer and you go to the online hall, it does it there, and then when you start the mission, it does it like all fucking day long. It's just up and down, up and down. So, there's settings that we'll get into here in a sec that I'll show you. And let me plug in my headset here, because heaven forbid, for whatever reason, it likes to turn off, even though I technically have shit going on. Anyways, so the next three boxes, I mean, you could set those if you want. Full screen is just going to maximize the whole damn thing. Stretch to display may or may not cause some graphical weirdo stuff to go on. Small display, if you have, a small display. That also makes the emulator itself just kind of smaller. Now, for performance, I have rendering resolution. I've actually got that set to 3 times the value of the standard PSP. Again, another thing, just personal preference. Typically, it's just auto 1-to-1 ratio. Set it to whatever the hell you want, whatever your system can handle. Go for it. That's only going to really impact you. VSync, I don't actually have that enabled. I don't typically have that enabled on very many games. Reason being because I don't really ever actually see any major difference. And I'm running a monitor that has a 144 refresh rate. Not noticing much of a difference. Now the next 4 I have actually checkmarked: MIP mapping, hardware transform, software scanning, and vertex cache or cache. I have those checkmarked. Just I left them. I think one of these were not checkmarked, and I don't remember which one. But the next 2 that you typically on a lower end system want to go ahead and checkmark are retain changed textures and disable slower effects. Those are typically a good idea to checkmark, just to make the system, if it's on a lower end, run it better. Even if on a higher system you want to leave those, not really going to notice much of a difference. On a higher system, lower system, that will actually help a little bit with your performance. And then in conjunction with those, when you have those 2 set, you actually want the spline Bezier curves quality set to low. I have this set to high. Again, kind of a little bit of a higher system. It's not, like thousands of dollars high. Mine's actually like $1,500. Maybe. Probably about 2,000. Anyways. Next one, texture scaling. I have that set to auto and then XBRZ. Those are the defaults. I didn't really change those. I had noticed that in a previous build, they actually had, I think, upscale was set to hybrid. I changed this to BRZ, and this is the setting where I had mentioned, it kind of made a difference on the speed and the FPS. I changed it to BRZ, and it kind of stabilized it a bit. Kind of nice. And, down here, the texture filtering, they had that all, this is all default. Hack settings may cause glitches, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, shit's gonna happen. All that, obviously, uncheckmarked. Now, this is where I actually have the FPS counter displayed, where it's got both speed and FPS. Nice to know what's going on. Even on my setting, which if you've looked at my videos, you'll probably have seen FPS dip to like 99.9 and then go back to 100. That happens. It fluctuates slightly. Now, with some of the settings that we've already gone over, you'll notice where it actually drops to like 80 or even low as like 50 and then goes up to like 111 to catch up and then restabilizes 101.9 or something, somewhere there, and then, keeps fluctuating, goes back and forth. Depends on the game. Monster Hunter being more of an action-based, you want to kind of keep up with things. You want those settings to, be to allow for that. And then, below that, debugging, software rendering, I haven't messed with that yet. It's there, but it's not something that I've exactly delved into yet. Now, audio, if you're using the build before this, which is just the base build from the emulator site, you just click on the Windows zip file, which is 0991. You will see in the audio settings where you can actually adjust the emulator sound itself, where you'll have background music and the game music. And I had that typically set to 3. This build, however, just has enable sound, audio latency, sound speed hack. So, as you can see here, I have it set to, enable sound, and audio latency set to medium. Controls, those are just going to be, your standard controls. And I've got all this set here. Networking, for this build, they actually tossed in the Ad Hoc Pro server IP address stuff and the server part. Ignore what I just said. They tossed this in here. It actually works just like the standalone online ad hoc server that you can run for these. And if you're on the same network, you don't need Hamachi, you don't need Tungle, you don't need Evolve. Evolve is what I use. My friends and I, we actually, since obviously we're not in the same location, same network as it were, we use Evolve, and it actually works a little bit better than installing Hamachi or Tungle. That actually installs a VPN software, as it were, into your system and has a whole bunch of other stuff. Evolve is just kind of a standalone thing. It's a circumstantial VPN hosting service specifically for gaming, actually, which is nice. MAC address. Back on topic. You want to make sure that this is different than everyone else's. And then the system. I've got under emulation, because you're not going to see any of these things here. UI change, you can change your language if you're from another country. I don't know who all's looking at the video, but under emulation, fast memory, I leave that disabled. It's reportedly, and I've looked at different guides and stuff, and they say that if you're single player or multiplayer, at least for Monster Hunter, that doesn't affect it. I leave it off just in case, because I do on different times play with 3 to 4 people, which that's actually a whole different avenue of things. Now, because I have an 8-core processor, I'm running multi-threaded, and then the I/O on thread, I have those check marks. Again, because I have an 8-core processor, and I do actually happen to have it a little bit overclocked. Didn't need to, it already runs at 4.0 base. I just have it up to 4.8. No big deal. Not that much. And then you've got all the other settings, which are default. And then you go down to here, and it's got all these extra settings as well. I don't really change those. For Monster Hunter, you want to leave cheats disabled. Those actually will make an impact. We did test that. I had a cheat enabled where I could go ahead and see monster stagger points and their overall HP amount, stuff like that, when they were catchable, stuff like that. Just to see if it would affect the game. It does. And it in a fairly negative way, actually. What'll happen is one player out of the group, or multiple of them, will seemingly have far less attack power than usual, or like immensely more, or the same for defense. It's weird. So leave those disabled, because it's going to cause that issue where people are like, dude, what the hell? Be friendly with your gaming with other people. Now, other settings, they're standard, PSP 2000, 3000. They have the 1000 option. No need to use it. And then, all the other stuff. So, but, as far as any other settings or whatnot, it's pretty much however you feel like you can actually get it to run stably. These are just my settings. Should you use them? In my opinion, how I have my settings that we've gone over, with the exception of the rendering resolution, that's typically at a 1-to-1 ratio. The way I have the settings, it leaves the FPS and the speed at roughly an overall 30 to 30, and a 100, or anywhere from 99.9 to 100 on the speed. Speed. Because, frames is the 30 by 30. So I would suggest them, but again, you test all the settings. You're really not going to hurt much, other than maybe causing game not to really load correctly, and it'll crash. So you have to go back to settings, reset them, everything else. But those set them how you like, figure it out, go from there. Anyways, those are my settings for Monster Hunter Portable Third and Freedom Unite. Thanks for watching, and go kick some ass!